Hello guys, this is Doronsmovies and you're watching the 31st episode of the lore Q&A. So today I'll be answering some of the questions you guys left on the previous video, and if you would like to get your questions answered, make sure to put them on either the newest Q&A lore video. You can also put them on the older ones, but newest ones I usually check more often. Also, you can send your questions by YouTube personal messages, Facebook and Twitter, and also I usually respond to you quicker on Facebook and Twitter. Also, I was just gonna ask you guys for some feedback. In this video, I'm actually using some regular World of Warcraft footage, but I'm just wondering, would you either in the future Q&As, would you want some Warlords of Draenor footage, or would you still like the footage that is on the live servers? Because I don't know, some people may not like spoilers, but I could use maybe some small quests, or something that isn't really going to spoil the main story. I'm not really gonna put like the main quest line in the video. So do give me some feedback on that, and yeah, what you would like to see, what footage you would like to see in the background. Alright, so let's start. Austin asks, do you think the Alliance will ever retake the eastern and the western Plaguelands? So I don't really think they will ever actually, retake it for good. But I feel like those two zones, I mean, they were part of Lordaeron before, and then they were corrupted and then, kind of ruined by the Scourge. But I feel like they will, they will change in the future. They won't be so dark or so dull, it looks kind of, the zones are kind of, you get really the feeling that the Scourge was there. But I feel like that, that feeling will change soon. Because now you got some, Argent Crusade influence. You got some Paladins around and some Druids as well, so I feel like the zone is going to be better because, as I said, like the Scourge is also gone, so there is literally no Scourge there anymore. I mean, the Scourge is still in Northrend, but it's no longer, as it was before. I mean, it's kind of, you could say controlled, localized maybe. It's not like a massive threat or like a bunch of these undead, just some remnants around there that are currently controlled by Bolvar. So I do think the zones will change, but I don't think it will ever really be retaken by the Alliance anytime soon, because the zone is actually neutral, so it's both Horde and Alliance zone. I mean, it doesn't belong to anyone, but it would be really hard for the Alliance, to retake those zones because the Forsaken are there. So I mean, if the Alliance control those zones, the Forsaken would see that kind of as a direct threat. So, they would just... This would be an all-out war, and currently the world is at peace. But still, I don't think they will, because if you look at the Eastern Kingdoms, it's kind of divided in two parts. So the top, is mostly Horde, while the bottom is the Alliance. And yeah, that's pretty much the same as it is in the Kalimdor. Because, Kalimdor is just, the other way around. North is the Alliance and down is the Horde, mostly. Not all zones, but mostly when you look at all the regions. So I do think like they will change that. Maybe some of those zones will be changed in the future, depending on the expansions. But I don't think they will do something as blatant and as for example placing an Alliance zone just outside Lordaeron. I mean the Undercity, the undead Lordaeron. So I feel like that will stay as a neutral zone, although I don't feel it will, change maybe its looks, some quests. It depends on what sort of an expansion or like a patch happens in there. Alright, next. Siegfried Greeding asks, do you think Blizzard will make a World of Warcraft virtual reality with Oculus Rift, Vertex Omni, Control VR STEM controller? Add all those to make a very body-moving sword, singing staff, waving realistic VR game. And to where you can as well customize your own armor, the way it looks, and mix 3 classes into one, where you have around 40 classes to mix, like Pet Army Necromancer or a Trap Static Engineer, and to where you can serve any faction, government, tribe, like the Cult of the Dam or the Legion of the Naru. And the more victory you do, your whole faction, government or tribe gets better stats. And lastly, the Earth life size Azeroth with each zone as its own server, then you go through a loading screen each time you go into another zone. So, first of all, no offense to you really, but I think you kinda have a bit of a bigger imagination. I mean, there's a bunch of things I can, think of, but you just gotta look what is actually possible. I mean, I can just think of like a world-size Azeroth, on another planet. But I mean, it's kind of, a lot more than we can handle right now. So I don't think all of that would work well. I think people at Blizzard would also want a lot bigger stuff, but they just can't, do all of that. They kind of have to keep it real. I mean, right now in the gaming industry, I mean, Blizzard is kind of a giant. I mean, they do have a lot of money, but that doesn't really, make everything possible. It can make stuff, happen faster, like higher quality and all of that. But, you just can't do stuff that hasn't been done. I mean, you can do it, but you gotta do it gradually. So, a lot of those stuff is kind of impossible. So, let's just go. I'm just gonna tell you thing by thing. So, for the first thing, well, I did actually think of using Oculus Rift in World of Warcraft and all of those, controllers. But, it's gonna be a bit hard for the game. Because, the game just isn't designed for that. I mean, the game is obviously just designed for the PC. And the, keyboard, standard, keyboard and mouse. So, I feel like it's gonna be a bit hard. I mean, I guess you could use that, but, it's not really gonna be as playable. And, I mean, when you look at World of Warcraft, it's not really supposed to be, super immersive. Like some other games. For example, you got Amnesia or like these horror games that are really immersive. And the point of Oculus Rift is, for it to be kind of immersive. So when you wear it, you feel like you're inside the game. But, WoW just doesn't have that feel in itself. I mean, it's not really supposed to be super immersive. And rarely, I mean, you can use first person in World of Warcraft, but rarely anyone uses first person. And it's actually really hard to do anything from the first person perspective, because, I mean, when you do like big raids, you got these amazingly like huge bosses, and when you do PvP as well, you gotta see what is happening around you. So, I mean, you can play World of Warcraft from the first person. I usually use it, to like record videos, or maybe if you want to check some stuff out. But, the game just isn't played from the, from the first person perspective. So I don't really see, Oculus Rift being used in World of Warcraft. Okay, so for the second thing, well, it is interesting, but it is, kind of just impossible. I mean, you're saying like 40 classes and all of these, but, making models as well, as you said with customizable armor, making models just takes a lot of time. I mean, I did it before, and it's kind of, it's kind of impossible to make the character, to make yourself design your own armor in the game, give the players that ability. I mean, what you can do is what is already done in a lot of games. You got the customization. So, for example, you can change, you can kind of build your characters, but it's kind of, set already. When you're building your own characters in the games like Skyrim or something else, you're pretty much just working off an already made model, and you're just adjusting some features. But in order to like actually design your own armor, you would have to actually make all those models, implement everything, texture it. So it is kind of impossible right now to be able to do that. I mean, it does take a lot of time, even for professional artists to do that. So I don't really see that happening anytime soon. Also, 40 classes are kind of a lot of work. I mean, it's kind of just impossible to balance. I mean, they can make 40 classes. It's entirely possible. But just imagine balancing 40 classes. I mean, it's even hard to balance a few classes. I mean, when you have two different... even in FPS games, I mean, if you have like 2 or 3, different classes like tank, sniper or whatnot, like scouts. I mean, it's still really hard to balance, because... I don't know, you just can't, you have to make each other match, each class to match each other, so one isn't really overpowered and the another one isn't underpowered. But for example, if you have like 10 classes already made, and if you even just add another one, you have to adjust all those classes towards that one, so it's really hard, to make it actually work. So I really don't see that, really possible. Also, you mentioned, these factions, all like Cult of the Damned, like Legion of the Naru and all of that, but I don't know, it's really hard to make anything more than, just 2 factions. I mean, when you design a game, you will actually, you can see how actually hard it is to do. And even with 2 factions, I mean, imagine if you had like 10 factions and like 40 classes. I mean, that would, it would be really hard for Blizzard to actually make. I mean, it's not really just to work. I mean, it's just making it like physically possible. And also, how would that work? I mean, if you had like 6 factions, and then how do you know which one is, one could be hostile towards the other and another one could be friendly with that. So you can have like, you know, sub factions maybe. So for example, like, I don't know, you said the Naru, maybe you could be under the Alliance. Really, I don't see any point in that. I mean, when you play your own race, when you're for example a Draenei or a Dwarf or an Orc, you're already representing, you know, that faction. I mean, if you RP, you can also, you know, RP your own. For example, if you're an Orc, you can RP a Frostwolf Orc. But I don't really see any point in adding like Frostwolf Orcs or Warsong Orcs or anything like that actually in the game, you know. I mean, they are there like a small faction. I mean, you can get a reputation with them, but it would be kind of hard to make players, you know, choose their own faction inside a faction already. So I think it's just a lot of work, and it is, you know, kind of unnecessary when you look at it. Also, on the last question, as you mentioned, like world-size Azeroth, I mean, theoretically, it is actually possible to maybe work. I mean, but in a way, it is kind of impossible as well. I mean, I noticed like these few of these games that came out for Android or iPhones. So you have like these geographical games, you know, where, for example, in what location you are right now, you're in the game as well. But I mean, that's just 2D, and it's kind of using Google Maps and GPS, so it's kind of utilizing that. But just making an entire, you know, world like that is kind of impossible. Well, for a bunch of reasons. First would be, you know, it takes like immense amount of time. I mean, they take an entire year just to, I mean, they've been working on Warlords of Draenor for who knows how many years, and they're just working on like 5 zones. And just imagine actually, you know, making an entire world-sized, you know, world. So that is just you know, insane amount of work. I mean, you can design that, you know, if you just use like simple terrain or whatnot, but you know, using these like models and, you know, lighting and all of that, it would require like a million level designers or something like that in order to make it work. Also, it would be really hard for the computers to work on. I mean, the game is like 30 gigabytes already, and they're just all these zones, so I really don't even see a point in doing that. I mean, making a huge, gigantic world, because none of the current computers would definitely be able to handle that, and you will require like 10 terabyte hard drives or something like that. So, in conclusion, I mean, some of these are cool ideas, but most are kind of impossible. But I do see World of Warcraft actually working with Oculus Rift, but I don't know, it's kind of, you know, it can actually work, but I don't think it will add much, you know, it won't be really a big element in the game, you know. It's kind of like, you can just use Oculus Rift to see if it works in the game, but not like using it to raid or anything like that. Okay, next, Yukine asks, before Mists of Pandaria was announced, a dev answered a question about Stormwind being fixed or not in an upcoming expansion, and he said that they wanted to improve Stormwind in a different way than they did it with Orgrimmar. And now in an interview before Warlords of Draenor announcement around the end of 5.2 or something, another dev said that they wanted to use the destroyed Park District in Stormwind to plop a floating island Dalaran located in, since Jaina and the Kirin are now part of the Alliance instead of a separate and a neutral faction. So do you think Blizzard will stick to this idea, as they seem to dump whole ideas into a trash can if they don't like it? Well, you're definitely right on the trash can part, because they do dump a lot of ideas. I mean, like back in 2000, I mean, they dumped an entire game just because they didn't think it was the best idea afterwards. You know, I think it was the Lord of the Clans. So now no one has that game, except I believe one guy, he's like a Russian guy or something. But I mean, it is kind of a common practice with Blizzard to do that, you know, just ditch ideas. But I don't know if they will actually change Stormwind, because no one knows anything yet, but I do feel like they will, you know, make some changes to it, because I feel like they have to change Orgrimmar, because it's a different, you know, it's a different war chief, and the city was kind of destroyed. So I feel like they have to change the Stormwind as well, because, you know, you can't just change one city and just leave another one, you know, destroyed. But I don't think they would do like these massive changes. I mean, the Dalaran thing would make a lot of sense, and it would be really, really cool. I mean, if you had like another city in that part of the city, but I don't really see that happening yet. Maybe in Warlords of Draenor, maybe what they could do is make like a zone, like for example they have the Cathedral Square, they could make like the Dalaran zone or something like that. You know, not like a huge city, but maybe, you know, just a little district or something like that. Or maybe just place the Dalaran above and, you know, so you can teleport there. But I don't really see any point in that right now, and I don't think they will actually manage to, you know, do anything like that anytime soon. And also, as I said, I mean, I don't know if they will, you know, do that, because if they change Stormwind as well, if they make like this massive change, for example with Dalaran, they would also have to do it with the Horde, because, you know, it's because of the community, so everything has to be balanced. Because if you change the Horde, then the Alliance is going to complain and say like how Horde gets everything. It does actually happen, I mean, it did happen in the few latest patches, but I mean, the Alliance gets a lot of things, you know, sometimes. So you do kind of have to, you know, keep stuff balanced out. So for example, if you do like a massive change to the Horde, you have to do the same for the Alliance. So I hope they will change both capitals, but I really don't know yet. So I guess we'll just have to wait out and see. Alright, and the last question is by Mr. Patate, and he asks, do you think that Warlords of Draenor will save World of Warcraft? And do you think it will bring more people to the game, maybe not as in the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King, but enough to make the game feel alive again and keep people playing for more than a couple or just 1 month? So I do think the Warlords of Draenor will actually, you know, save World of Warcraft, but, you know, save is kind of a wide term. I mean, the game isn't really dying. I mean, it's slowly going down because not much content is happening, but the game is still doing really well. So I don't know how much it will save it in that term, but I feel like that it will, you know, it will help the game out a lot. I mean, I believe it will bring out a lot of, you know, older players, but I don't believe it will really attract too many new players. I do believe like the subscriber rates will go up once the expansion comes out. Now, I didn't really play too much alpha, so I really don't know, you know, too much about Warlords of Draenor. I mean, I did like the basic quests, and I mean, it's even still the alpha, so a lot of things aren't final, and they still got a lot of things to add. But I mean, so far the game is just amazing. I mean, they definitely added a lot more things to the game that they're kind of new. You know, they kind of experimented with the whole, you know, they kind of added like this RPG aspect, as I mentioned before. I mean, they kind of implemented it, like tested it out on the Timeless Isle, you know, with the whole, you don't have like certain quests, but you can find them, and you can, you know, find all these items hidden around, and, you know, it like the player actually kind of gets rewarded by the exploration. So that's kind of a new thing. I mean, that hasn't really happened in the previous expansions like Wrath of the Lich King or Mists of Pandaria. It was, you know, just kind of tested out, but, you know, it wasn't really fully implemented. But I believe it is actually a great way, you know, to make the game a lot more interesting than it already is. Also, another new thing is the garrisons. I mean, so far from what I've seen, the garrisons are pretty amazing. I mean, you have like your own town, you have like your own, you know, missions. It reminds me a bit of, you know, from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, I believe. You had like your own creed, so you had your own assassins. You could like level them, you know, send them on certain missions. Well, you know, garrisons are sort of like that, you know, but just a bit cooler. Because, you know, it's an MMORPG and you can do a lot more things there. But the problem I see is that the garrisons could get a bit boring afterwards. I mean, what happens once you get all those upgrades and, you know, it's just a garrison? Even you see, I mean, the environment doesn't really change too much. So you've seen it already. I mean, you've done everything you can, like all the upgrades. So I can see how it can get boring, but, you know, they could always do something new in like patches or whatnot. So, you know, they can kind of make it more interesting, but it still is an amazing aspect, you know, added to the game. So I do feel it will be a good addition. Also, the general graphics are a lot better. You know, the zones look a lot better, the models look a lot better, you know, the textures. Also, they added these new models, you know, it really does make the game a lot fresher. You know, the only thing that sucks is they haven't added any new classes or races. But I mean, the new models are really cool. I mean, you got all these new animations. And as I said, you know, it kind of makes World of Warcraft still compete with the other, you know, new MMORPGs that are still coming out today. The game is also a lot simpler, I mean, but I guess it's in a good way. I mean, they're kind of, you know, making it, you know, simple, but not like dumbing it down. I mean, they introduced scaling, so now you have like, you know, I don't mean like level scaling, but I mean like they scale the spells and like the health and everything. So right now you have like a maximum like 70,000 health instead of like the previous like millions of health or whatnot with all the buffs. So I mean, it's still pretty cool. And they also added the spell, you know, the spell count is a lot lower right now. I don't know if that's really good. I'm not really like an amazing PvPer or like a raider, so I really don't know like if the classes are still the same as they were before. They aren't they aren't really that much changed. But, it could turn out better in the end. I mean, it's still the alpha, so they're gonna add a lot more spells, I believe, and, just gonna change a few other things, so we'll have to see that on the actual launch. But, I mean, you can actually, design a game in a simple way and actually make it a lot better than, making this super complex game. Because, sometimes, simple can actually be a lot better than complex. So, we'll have to kind of wait out for as I said, for the actual release, to see what will be final. Because, as I said, a lot of things in the alpha currently are just either placeholders or are still being added in the game. Also, lastly, there's the level 90 boost. I mean, it's not really good for the, for the players that are already playing the game. I mean, a lot of people already have alts. Or, I mean, personally, I really don't like it because I don't really like the fact that you can buy levels, if you have some money. Because I feel like each player should be pretty much equal depending on what you do in your real life or if you have more money or not. But I guess it's a good way, to kind of keep the competition, like, well, if you could say the competition, but those like gold farmers or whatnot, to kind of keep them at bay. Because, you don't have to buy like all these power leveling stuff or whatnot. But I believe the main reason for the level 90 boost is mostly because of the, in order to like bring new players into the game. Because I know a lot of my friends that want to play the game, but they just kind of get bored because they don't really want to level to level 90 because they either play the game already before, tried it out. And a lot of people that get into the game, just don't want to, spend so much time, doing older stuff, even though, like, right now, questing, awards you a lot more experience and leveling is a lot easier than it was before. But I feel like it would still be a good idea, to kind of bring back either older players or, just get newer players to see Warlords of Draenor as it is, like all the new stuff. So they don't have to do, like, the Fast 5 expansions in order to see the new stuff. So, generally, I think Warlords of Draenor will improve World of Warcraft and bring some old players back, make the subscriber count a lot bigger. But, I don't know, like, I really can't speculate a lot right now. But, as I said previously, we just gotta wait out and see the final result. Alright, and that is all I have for now. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave your questions either by YouTube comment section, Facebook and Twitter, and also YouTube personal messages. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. See you next time.